Hello everyone! With Wave 2 of the Clan Invasion Kickstarter about to fulfill, I figured it was time I go back to my plastic battle mechs of the new redesigned line that Catalyst Game Labs launched, that I painted quite a while ago. The links are in the card for those tutorials if you'd like to see them, and they're also in this new Battletech playlist if you're interested in that. And do some little upgrades. These are upgrades for playability, for look, and just sort of some stuff I could do to bring them in line with a little more experience that I've gained in painting battle mechs since I made those tutorials. These upgrades are super quick and easy, and you can do them either to already painted models, like I'm doing, or integrate them into your painting process from scratch for the new models you're going to get as part of the Kickstarter. As for what exactly we're going to be upgrading, I'm taking some stuff that I applied in my Clan Wolf painting tutorial, also linked in the card now, as far as trying to bring things in line with the nice heft of these metal miniatures, adding a facing indicator, which is pretty essential for some of these plastics, as I'll point out later, and just zhuzhing up the cockpits a little bit. In my previous tutorial, I had some perfectly functional paint jobs here, but as you can see, the cockpits are a little dull, the weight of the plastics is not very satisfying, and on the tall models, they're very unbalanced as a result, and the facing indicators can really help for models where the legs and arms and head aren't necessarily all pointing in the same direction. So first things first, I'm going to start by adding weight to the base, and I'm going to do that simply with some 1-inch flat washers. Now 1-inch flat washers are almost perfect. They almost fit right into the bottom of these bases, except they don't quite. There's just a little bit of overhang. A little frustrating, but very, very easy to fix with either some hand tools or some more advanced tools, as I'll get to later. As far as hand tools go, nothing crazy here, just a sharp knife and a hand file will do. Since the bottoms of these bases are already hollowed almost to the right size, it's just a matter of carefully shaving away plastic, and it is very soft plastic, with your sharp knife, and then filing it down if you get any sort of weird edges that you find sharp or unappealing. You don't need to shave down the entire hex side, really you just need to shave away the center of probably 3 of the hex sides for the washer to fit in. In this case, I carved away all the sides because I wasn't quite sure how much clearance I would need to make, but really, you only need to carve away pretty much the center of 3 different hex sides, and then your 1-inch washer will fit in there very neatly and comfortably. Test fit it regularly so you don't do any more work than you need to, and just go in and carve away any additional bits as necessary. If you want to do it quicker, you can use something like this Engrave It Pro cheap engraving tool, or an actual rotary tool if you have one. My Dremel is non-functional at the moment, and just carve away wherever you need to carve away additional material. This is going to be a lot easier on the hands, and also run a lot less risk of actually driving a knife into your finger by slipping while you're watching a YouTube video or something, because this is kind of tedious work. So, you know, to avoid complacency setting in, a quicker tool is also a little safer. This engraving tool isn't ideal, it is just a weird engraving tool, cheap something from a craft store that I got a long time ago, but it does the trick. So, even if you want to upgrade to an electronic device or some sort of stronger device, it doesn't have to be expensive. Because of the extremely soft plastic, if you do choose to use something motorized in order to Dremel out to the bottom of these bases, you're going to have to clean it off pretty frequently because the soft plastic is just going to gum up the bit. But once you've tested it and found that your washer fits comfortably underneath the base and everything sits flush, you can now go into actually affixing it. I choose to use super glue here since the washer is affixed inside a hollow in the base, so it's not going to get knocked off or anything. The brittleness is not an issue. And I use gel super glue in particular because it's going to hold its shape on top of the washer and allow me to sort of press things together much more easily. If you use a really runny, extra thin super glue, you might have a harder time of this, but I use gel for almost every application. It's just easier to handle and easier to manage. As long as everything does fit flush, you can just press the model down on top of the washer and everything will stick together. The next thing I want to add is a facing indicator to the bases of these miniatures. Since facing is important in Battletech, this takes away any ambiguity while playing the game and allows me to resolve which way is the front face immediately. Any little symbol will do, but I draw inspiration from RD Iron Warrior on Instagram who uses a dual color chevron. I like the look of that, so I'm going to do it. For an example of the facing ambiguity, we can look at this Wolverine who's got a torso twist on. It's a nice dynamic pose, but a little ambiguous, so by adding a facing marker I could just solve that and have no problems when I'm playing the game. I'm going to use 2 Vallejo paints here, medium flesh tone and amaranth red, in order to keep my colors standard across all the models. You could use a cheaper craft paint for this, but it won't cover as well over the black, so I'd recommend you put some white down first, and then go in with your cheaper craft paints. Using craft paints may also mean you have to mix your colors again every time, which may not be a huge disadvantage for you, but for me, since I intend to paint a lot of battle mechs in the future with this Kickstarter coming in, I did want to have some standard colors that I could just fall back on quickly. Also, since I applied the paint for the edges of my bases after clear coating so that it remained glossy, I could just use that exact same black paint to just trim up the edges of the facing indicators and make everything look neat afterwards. Finally, for the Canopy Upgrade, this is basically the process that I showed off in my Clan Wolf Battlemechs tutorial. The Timber Wolf here is a great example. But I'm just going to do it again to these mechs, and I can apply it over top of the previous canopies very, very easily. By making sure I use paints with a matte finish, or by mixing a little bit of matte Mod Podge into any paints that don't have a matte finish, I can apply them over top of my clear coat like this and I won't have any issues of texture. The only issue would then be one of actual durability, but since the canopies are small areas that I don't expect to get chipped or damaged too often, I don't think the durability issue of not having a clear coat over top of them is too much of a concern for me. So following my new usual process for canopies, I'm starting out with a small brush and just filling in the entire area of all the canopies with black paint. I want to start from dark and work my way up to light by doing that sort of transition, the gradient process that I showed off in previous tutorials for example, laser jeweling, the jeweling on the weapons. The PPC here kind of shows it, moving from a dark color to a light color to a white highlight. I'm going to do that to the canopies, except in this case I'm going to move through orange. I like using orange for my inner sphere canopies and blue for my clan canopies, just sort of as a thematic thing, and also based on my experience in MechWarrior Online, which uses sort of blue as a cockpit theme for the clans and orange as a cockpit theme for the inner sphere. It helps differentiate them a little bit and just looks kind of nifty, I guess. Using a fairly small brush and working carefully here is pretty important because these areas are really small and I also don't want to splash over my paint onto the areas that are already painted around the cockpit. I can cover any such mistakes up with some more blue paint with a little bit of Mod Podge in it if I want, but to save myself time, I'm just going to try and avoid that as much as possible. I'm now going in, and after building my way up to a nice bright orange, I'm putting in a couple of dots of white, one in the center of the orange and one in the opposite corner, sort of representing the light source that is, I guess, the consoles in the cockpit at the bottom of the canopy, and then a reflection probably from the sun at the top of the canopy. And this gives just a more dynamic and sort of more poppy color than the ink method that I demonstrated in the earlier tutorials. While the ink method is great for giving a nice faded colored effect to the canopies, and totally acceptable, I just figured this way, sort of with the white dots and everything, makes the canopies pop out just a little bit more, draws the eye to them a little bit more, and gives a little bit more detail to those areas of the mech, which matches up pretty well with what I already did for the lasers. I just wanted to show it off on a different battle mech here. This is the Wolverine instead of the Griffin. The Griffin had nice wide canopy areas. The Wolverine's got sort of weird side canopy areas. But the general shape is roughly the same in all cases. I'm going for sort of a crescent shape, weighted a little bit towards one of the lower corners of the canopy, so higher on the left side than on the right, and across the bottom. And then I'm building up towards a bright orange near the bottom of the canopy, again representing the consoles or whatever is casting that light through the, I would imagine, orange glass of the canopy. And then I'm going to go in with that white highlight in the center of the brightest part of the canopy at the bottom, and another white highlight in the opposite corner up in the middle of the black area of the canopy, like so. Getting the very, very small amount of white paint, considering I'm using craft paints here again, it can be pretty difficult because they're a little gloopy, but it's worth the try because getting the smallest possible dot here is going to make things look detailed. And I apologize for the focus there, but here you get a better idea of sort of what I was doing. With the canopies all touched up, that's it. That's the upgrades I wanted to do to my battle mechs. By doing this, I've sort of brought my older mechs in line with my newer mechs without having to strip off the paint or do anything like that. Now the sort of collections match a little bit better. My 4th Deneb Cavalry, my Donegal Guards, and my clan mechs are ready to face off, especially after they'll have received the reinforcements that are coming in this newest wave of the Kickstarter. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that helps both those of you who've already painted some battle mechs, if you want to do some little upgrades to sort of punch up the quality a little bit, or any of you who are just starting off in Battletech. If you're just getting your Kickstarter or otherwise starting Battletech recently, then maybe these are tips that you can work into your workflow for future battle mech painting. Take a look at the video I linked in the card earlier for painting Clan Wolf battle mechs if you want to see all of these in action. It is on metal miniatures, so there are some bits at the beginning as far as construction that won't be important if you are getting into Battletech through the plastic miniatures, but the rest of the process is the same whether it's plastic or metal. I'm hoping to work on a lot more Battletech stuff in the near future, so I hope you're looking forward to that. If you have any questions or comments about what you saw today, let me know down in the comments. I love answering them, and I love being able to help out people who are just starting out in painting, because sometimes a little bit of personalized advice is really all you need. With all that being said, thank you all very much for watching, and as usual, go play some games.